Dishonor on you, dishonor on your cow, dishonor on your sequel. Hey everybody, welcome to Mainely Movies. Today, I'm going to be talking about Disney's 2004 direct-to-video animated sequel, Mulan II. If you're new here, please consider subscribing for a variety of movie-related content like reviews, ranked lists, and trailer reactions. All my reviews include a breakdown of the pros and cons, my rating, and some tailored film recommendations, so be sure to watch through to the end of this video for all of that extra content. Mulan II stars the vocal talents of Ming-Na Wen, Wong, and Mark Moseley, and was directed by the duo of Darrell, Rooney, and Lynne, Southerland. Set a month after the end of the first movie, this film tells the story of Mulan, voiced by Ming-Na Wen, who, following her engagement to General Shang, must escort the Emperor's 3 daughters across the country. The first Mulan film is without question one of my absolute favorite Disney movies. It's one of my favorite animated movies from any studio, and one of my favorite movies in general. After The Lion King, I would say that Mulan was the movie that had the biggest impact on me growing up. It was a fantastic and entertaining story, but more importantly, it had the character of Mulan. She was independent and strong and brave. She did what needed to be done and didn't let expectations and conventions stop her. As an 8-year-old girl, she seemed like a perfect role model to me, as silly as that sounds considering she's an animated character. But she was the first Disney female character that ever seemed completely independent to me. She wasn't a damsel in distress. She wasn't a princess waiting around for a prince to come and do all the heavy lifting. She was strong, and she was awesome, and the movie benefited greatly as a result. 6 years passed, and then suddenly, out of nowhere, Mulan II was released direct-to-video. At that point, Disney's DTV sequels were not a new phenomenon. The House of Mouse began pumping these bad boys out on VHS in the early 90s, with the follow-up to Aladdin, The Return of Jafar. They put out a few of these sequels a year, but in the early 2000s, production ramped up, and nearly every Disney movie seemed to have a DTV sequel, even films that had been released decades before. These direct-to-video sequels don't have the best reputation. They didn't earn the nickname cheapquels for nothing. There are a few pretty decent exceptions, most notably The Lion King 2, Simba's Pride, and to a lesser extent, The Lion King 1.5, but the vast majority of these DTV movies are underwhelming at best. So, by the time Mulan 2 was released, I had seen my fair share of these DTV movies. I also wasn't 8 years old anymore. In fact, I was a freshman in high school. But it was Mulan, so I couldn't help but be kind of excited about it. After all, The Lion King, my favorite Disney movie, had gotten 2 decent DTVs, including one earlier that same year, so I was optimistic. Stupidly optimistic, it turns out. Mulan 2 is no Mulan. Now, obviously that was a given, but it was also no Lion King 2. It wasn't even a Lion King 1.5. No, Mulan 2 was unfortunately down amongst the ranks of some of the worst Disney direct-to-video sequels. So you might be sitting there thinking, big deal, what did you expect? And I know that most simply view these DTV releases as the cash grabs that they inevitably are, but when I watch them, I try to find some purpose to justify the sequel's existence. And with its inspirational story and the impact it had on female characters in family films, Mulan was a movie that really could have justified a sequel. Unfortunately, Mulan 2 is not that sequel. I really don't understand what the filmmakers were thinking with this one. Just from a plot perspective, there's no need for this movie. It doesn't add anything to the story or character development from the first film, so it ends up being this unnecessary and weird, tangential, what happens next adventure. Now, that's disappointing, but most of Disney's direct-to-video sequels follow that episodic extra adventure structure, so it wasn't really a surprise. What was a surprise, though, and what was far more than just disappointing, was the sequel's unraveling of the core messages of the first film, and really everything that made that movie so good. In the first film, Mulan was a strong and self-sufficient character. She still retains most of those qualities in the sequel, but the story around her has shifted in a way that ridiculously downplays those strengths and her experiences. One of the things that I always found refreshing about the first movie, even as a kid, was that the focus was on Mulan. Her relationship with Shang was definitely present, but it didn't define her, and definitely wasn't the focus of the movie. Mulan 2 flips it around and makes it almost the entire focus. The story is far less compelling as a result, and then the new characters and arranged marriage subplot get thrown into the mix like a heavy-handed add-on, only further drawing the focus away from Mulan. And then there's Mushu. He was one of my favorite parts of the first movie, and just like with the story focus, almost nothing of what made him so good in that movie remains. The most obvious and immediately apparent difference is the voice casting. Even though almost every single other actor reprised their role in the sequel, which is kind of unheard of in the direct-to-video world, Eddie Murphy did not. He was instead replaced with Mark Moseley, who does do a decent Eddie Murphy impression, but Mushu does sound noticeably off. But it's not the voice that bothers me here, it's what they do with his character. I would argue that of all of the characters in the first Mulan, Mushu was the one with the most substantial character arc. He begins that story as a disgraced former guardian who selfishly and deceitfully takes on the Mulan assignment in the hopes of returning to his guardianship. Over the course of the movie, though, he grows to care about Mulan and becomes more and more selfless in his actions, putting their friendship above all else. In Mulan 2, all of that gets undone in a split second. Mushu regresses to a point that's far more selfish than he ever was even in the first movie. He's obnoxious and spiteful and mean-spirited, and it just feels extraordinarily out of character for no reason other than to create conflict in the movie. And really, it's not just Mushu who feels off. Shang is really angry all the time and constantly flies off the handle for no reason. The Emperor is kind of aggressive and mean. Even Mulan takes on this docile, subdued quality that just doesn't feel in line with the first movie. Mulan 2 isn't atrocious. The animation's fine for a direct-to-video sequel, the songs are okay, it's nice having almost all the original voice cast back. It's definitely watchable, but something is just very wrong with it. With all of the character arcs and thematic elements that it completely undoes, it honestly feels like the writers never even bothered to actually watch the first movie. Alright, let's talk about the pros and cons. The only real pro for me is the returning voice cast. Eddie Murphy is the obvious and noticeable exception, but really everybody else reprises their roles. It was a big deal to get Ming-Na Wen and BD Wong back as Mulan and Shang, but basically all of the minor characters are back too. Yao, Ling, Chen Po, the Emperor, Fa Zhu, Fa Li, it's honestly pretty impressive. Direct-to-video sequels are usually lucky to get 1 or 2 actors back, and somehow 6 years later, with a really subpar script, Mulan 2 managed to get all but 1 back. On the con side, the biggest issue was the story. First off, the plot itself was completely unnecessary and does nothing to justify the need for a sequel. It's your average tacked-on adventure that really only barely connects to the first film. That's disappointing, but the frustrating part is the massive shift in story focus. Mulan was, unsurprisingly, about Mulan. It wasn't about the side characters, it wasn't about Mulan and Shang's romance. Mulan 2 barely has the Mulan we know and love. She's pushed aside by new characters, and when she is on screen, the focus is almost constantly on her relationship with Shang. Not only that, but it's mostly generic, dull relationship drama that all but reverses the messages put forth by the first film. The second con is Mushu. I can't tell you how much it pains me to put Mushu in the cons, because he was one of my favorite parts of the 1998 film, but he's barely recognizable here. Sure, he looks the same, but everything else is different. Like I mentioned in the pros, Eddie Murphy didn't return for this film, so Mushu's instead voiced by Mark Moseley. He does an admittedly good Eddie Murphy impression, but you can tell it's not him. Believe it or not, though, that's not the reason Mushu's barely recognizable here. All of his character development from the first film gets undone here in an instant. The regression is out of nowhere and not really believable. Plus it turns Mushu into a petulant and spiteful character, which makes most of his humor not very funny this time around. Before I give you my rating and recommendations, I want to remind you that if you're interested in buying Mulan 2 or any of the films I mentioned today, I do have affiliate links for all of them in the description below. I get a small commission from anything you buy using one of my links, so I'd really appreciate it if you'd use them if you're in the market for any of these movies. I'm gonna give Mulan 2 2 out of 5 paws, and that's incredibly generous. It's a low 2 paws, but knowing how bad some of the other Disney DTVs are, I couldn't bring myself to go any lower. This is a very disappointing movie, and it feels like the writers never even watched the first film. I would recommend Mulan 2 really only to Disney completionists. If you're trying to watch all of Disney's movies, then you're gonna have to come across this one at some point, but I honestly can't even recommend this one to fans of Mulan. It's a big disappointment, and a huge step down, plus it doesn't add anything to the story or the characters, so you're honestly not missing out on anything other than extreme disappointment and frustration. If you liked Mulan 2, I've obviously gotta recommend Mulan. It's miles better than the sequel, so honestly, if you hated this one, I would still recommend Mulan. It's got a great story, strong characters, an entertaining tonal balance, and some wonderful messages. If you want to check out a Disney direct-to-video sequel that's actually good, you should watch The Lion King 2: Simba's Pride. It's actually directed by the same guy who directed this one, but don't let that dissuade you. It offers a worthwhile story, some nice animation and songs, and perhaps most importantly, is a fitting thematic successor to the original. And if you want another family film with an arranged marriage subplot, you might want to check out Corpse Bride. It's a stop-motion animated film that's a bit grim and gloomy at times, but ultimately a very entertaining movie. Alright, a couple questions for you guys. Number 1, have you seen Mulan 2? If so, what'd you think of it? And number 2, is the absence of a key cast member in a sequel a deal breaker for you? Be sure to leave your answers in the comments below so we can get a discussion going. Alright, so if you got some enjoyment, insider information out of this review, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit that like button. And if you haven't done so already, please hit subscribe while you're at it to see more videos like this. Till next time, this has been Alyssa with Mainely Movies, the way life should be.